Former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley giving her explanation as to why she is not being considered for Trump's second administration. It comes after a social media post by the president-elect over the weekend, which made it clear she was not being considered for any positions. That did have the feeling of Haley quitting before she could get fired. She said she wasn't interested. They were never interested in her. Welcome back to Morning Joe. It is Friday, November 15th. We're a little past 7 a.m. here on the East Coast. I'm Jonathan Lemire. I'm in for Joe, Mika, and Willie. John Howman is right there. He's still with us. And joining the conversation, we have co-host of The Weekend on MSNBC, Symone Sanders Townsend, and staff writer at The New Yorker, Susan Glasser. Welcome to you both. President-elect Donald Trump has nominated Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Health and Human Services Secretary. The department oversees several agencies, including the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Food and Drug Administration. NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard has the latest on this controversial pick.
After teasing a potential administration role for weeks,
RFK Jr., he's going to help us on health and the health of women, and men, and children, and he is so good.
President-elect Trump selecting Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be his next Secretary of Health and Human Services, writing, Americans have been crushed by the industrial food complex and drug companies who have engaged in deception, misinformation, and disinformation when it comes to public health. Kennedy is a former Democratic and independent presidential candidate who dropped out and endorsed Trump.
You want an America president who's going to make our country healthy again.
But he's faced criticism because of his history of vaccine skepticism, publicly espousing discredited assertions that vaccines cause autism. Vice President Harris slammed Trump for praising him.
He has indicated that the person who would be in charge of health care for the American people is someone who has routinely promoted junk science and crazy conspiracy theories.
Kennedy telling us last week that he would not block any vaccines.
I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccines. I've never been anti-vaccine.
You will not take any vaccine that is currently on the market.
I'm not. If vaccines are working for somebody, I'm not going to take them away.
During the campaign, Kennedy also made headlines when he said that 15 years ago, doctors told him he had a parasitic worm in his brain that died. Kennedy is a critic of U.S. healthcare policy who's advocated for big changes to food and drug regulation, writing last month, the FDA's war on public health is about to end, telling us he would eliminate parts of the FDA.
The nutrition departments at FDA that have to go, that are not doing their job. They're not protecting our kids.
That was NBC's Vaughn Hilliard with that report. Joining us now, former Obama White House advisor for health policy, vice provost for global initiatives at the University of Pennsylvania, Dr. Zeke Emanuel. Dr. Emanuel, thank you so much for being with us this morning. If we could just start with your reaction to Trump's nomination of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and if he were to take that position, what sort of impact would it have on our nation's health?
Well, I think the man is unqualified for the job. He doesn't have management experience. He doesn't understand how science is done. He doesn't understand how the federal government evaluates various studies. He can't actually look at a research paper and look at the data and draw conclusions. And he's about to, they want to give him a $2 trillion department with 80,000 employees that oversees the NIH, the FDA, the CDC, as well as Medicare and Medicaid. That is a bad combination. I should say he does have some ideas that are worth pursuing, such as focusing on chronic illness. 85 to 90 cents of every dollar we spend on healthcare goes to chronic illness. We have to focus on them. They are our big problems, whether hypertension, cancer, diabetes, arthritis, and we have to get our arms around them. And he's right, to improve the nation's health, you have to attack chronic disease. He's also right that we've got to look at ultra-processed foods in the food chain and how they cause obesity in the country and stop that. And we have to get conflict of interest issues out of the review of drugs, devices, nutrition, etc. But then he goes on to vaccines, one of the greatest inventions humans have ever had, where we've saved hundreds of millions of people. It's estimated we've saved 154 million people from vaccines in just the last 50 years. In the United States alone, the childhood vaccines, vaccines against hepatitis and pneumonia, we've saved 1.1 million people in the last 30 years. And he wants to get rid of them. He says he's not going to take them away from people, but he's going to not approve them. He's going to make sure the government doesn't certify them so that they can be reimbursed by insurance companies. And he's going to put a chill in the drug companies from investigating and doing research and development to develop new vaccines. This is right when we're facing an influenza, a potential influenza pandemic with H5N1, and we need to develop new ways of making those vaccines. So I worry a lot about this appointment, as I do about a lot of other appointments. It's not a good moment for health, I think.
Zeke, it's Sean Heilman here. Let me just suggest the possibility that one of the ways in which we're all kind of getting this story a little bit wrong is by looking at all of these cabinet appointments and evaluating them on the basis of, is the person qualified to run the thing they're being asked to run? Most of these people are not qualified to run the thing they're being asked to run. You put someone like Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon, which is, employs 2.8 million people. 2.8 million people at the Pentagon. The man has never run anything bigger than a carpool. He's obviously unqualified to run it. I think you would say the same thing about, as you just said, about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and HHS. But what if the goal isn't to run it, and the goal is, in fact, to ruin it? And what this is about, taking the president and his ideological abettors at their word, is about the thorough deconstruction of the administrative state. They're trying to wreck the government, not run the government. If that were the goal, Bobby Kennedy might be uniquely qualified to do that in the world of HHS, because not only is he not able to run an organization this big, but he's a paragon of misinformation and disinformation about health, which is another kind of toxicity and poison that he may introduce into the system if he gets this job.
I think there's a lot of merit to that. And let me say, I think another way of looking at this is President Trump had a lot of bad appointments during his first administration. He had Zinke at Interior, he had Rick Perry at Energy, and several others. But he also had some strong appointments, and people like Jim Mattis at the Defense Department and Mark Esper at the Defense Department. And he had, you may not like Bill Barr, but he understood that he had to stand up to the president at some points. I think another way of looking at these appointments is these are not people who are going to resist Trump's whims and are going to say, no, there is a bright line. These things aren't constitutional. These things aren't legal, and I'm not going to do them. And I think these are appointments that are going to bend to his will. And that, I think, is extremely dangerous. And it's up to the Senate. They have an advise and consent role. And we have seen that a lot of senators on the Republican side are not quite comfortable. They elected Senator Thune, who's an institutionalist, and I hope he defends the prerogatives of the Senate here. These are not, as you point out, these aren't people who can actually constructively run their departments in the national interest. And that, there's no faster way to become a second-rate power, and it has been, than to destroy your government and destroy your Defense Department, your economy with tariffs and other things. And I fear that that may be where we're headed.
The ramifications will be felt for decades to come. Dr. Zeke Emanuel, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So it's not just about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Trump's nominee for Attorney General, Matt Gaetz, is also facing growing scrutiny, but he's doing it from both Democrats and Republicans, with one saying that he absolutely wants to review an unreleased report examining allegations of sexual misconduct. A lawyer for an alleged victim also called for the report to be made public, posting this on social media. Mr. Gaetz's likely nomination as Attorney General is a perverse development in a truly dark series of events. We would support the House Ethics Committee immediately releasing their report. She was a high school student, and there were witnesses. NBC News Chief White House correspondent Peter Alexander has more.
President-elect Trump with more critical choices to come, including naming his economic team, as his set of picks are still sending shockwaves across Washington, especially the selection of conservative firebrand and now former Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz for Attorney General.
He's an accomplished attorney. He's very concerned about the lawfare that has been occurring in the Department of Justice under the Biden administration.
Multiple sources with direct knowledge tell NBC News Gaetz has been placing calls to Senate Republicans to get their read on his chances to get confirmed. One Republican saying there's already enough opposition to sink his nomination.
He's got a really steep hill to climb to get lots of votes, including mine. A lot of people will spend a lot of political capital on something that even if they got done, you'd have to wonder if it was worth it.
Gaetz resigned his House seat, abruptly ending the House Ethics Committee investigation into whether he engaged in sexual misconduct and illicit drug use, allegations Gaetz denies. The top Republican says senators should see the report.
I think there should not be any limitation on the Senate Judiciary Committee's investigation, including whatever the House Ethics Committee has generated.
Trump has repeatedly slammed the DOJ for what he says were political prosecutions designed to derail his presidency and campaign, praising Gaetz, who he says will end the, quote, partisan weaponization of our justice system.
The lawfare we've seen against President Trump will do great damage well beyond our time in public service.
Some Republicans argue after his decisive victory, Trump is entitled to the team he wants.
I'm telling my Democratic friends, elections have consequences whether you like it or not.
President-elect Trump hosting allies at Mar-a-Lago.
The great people of our country won the popular vote, and that's what they wanted, and this was something really special. Won the White House, recaptured the Senate, and now, as of today, recaptured the House.
Also facing a potential confirmation battle tonight, Trump's selection of Pete Hegseth for Defense Secretary, a Fox News host and decorated combat veteran. But Democrats are questioning his readiness to lead the Pentagon.
He has no managerial experience and no policy experience with the really substantive and significant issues that the Department of Defense has to confront.
Some Republicans are defending the pick.
The Department of Defense has been enormously mismanaged under the current regime. They need to stop working on pronouns and get back to lethality, and someone like Pete can lead that.
Then there's Trump's pick for the Director of National Intelligence, former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, a Democrat turned Trump supporter who's also a military veteran. But some lawmakers have slammed her past meeting with Syria's leader and accuse her of being too sympathetic to Russia.
Someone who has aligned herself previously with Russia, with Syria, should not be in a position to have any of the information that is, America's greatest secrets.
Gabbard speaking out.
Of course, there's going to be resistance to change from the swamp in Washington. I think that's kind of the point. The American people are saying, hey, stop looking at yourselves, stop focusing on your own power, your own position, your own bank accounts.
That was NBC's Peter Alexander with that report. Susan Glasser, your latest piece for The New Yorker has this headline: the most extreme cabinet ever. And you write in part this: perhaps it was no surprise that Trump, with his demands for ostentatious displays of loyalty and his penchant for obsessive television watching, has quickly assembled the makings of a second-term cabinet that might be better suited for a Republican reality show casting call. Trump's cabinet rollout shows pretty definitively his plan for the new administration. He does not just want to explode the norms of the Capitol when he returns to it. He wants to stomp on them and anyone who might be tempted to stick to the old rules that Trump loves to flout. You go on to write, the tawdry theatrics involved in the rollout of Trump's picks for key national security posts should not, however, obscure an underlying substance that is no less striking for having been utterly predictable. This time, the former president, who promised revenge and retribution, who openly admired Vladimir Putin's genius invasion of Ukraine, and whose advisors dream of dismantling the deep state, looks like he really wants to follow through on his pledges of disruption. So, Susan, certainly an insightful piece, and it seems like he's assembling a team to do just that. And this time, because he's now far more familiar with the levers of power in government, it seems like he has a much greater chance of succeeding than he did the first time around.
Yeah, I think that's what's really striking here. First of all, he did tell us all this in advance. We were talking about RFK Jr. He literally said before the election that he wanted him to go wild on America's health bureaucracy. So again, you know, the shock is that on some level, so many people are shocked. I do think, Jonathan, you and I have experienced this before. The distraction of the carnival, the theatrics. Donald Trump is a serial picker of fights. He's probably relishing all the attention to the controversies he's already generated in just 1 week. But I think that can be a distraction from what the underlying goals are here. Steve Bannon, you know, was practically gleeful in talking about the Gates pick the other day. But he said something I think is really important. He said, you know, Donald Trump has picked a blowtorch for the Justice Department. And you could say that almost all of these picks in their own ways are potential blowtorches for the departments that they have been chosen to lead. And I think to the extent there's an ideology, that's the ideology, an ideology of burn it down, blow it up, you know, reinvent it. And that plus personal loyalty to Trump himself, a big lesson he took away from his first term in office.
Hey, Simone, it's Heilman here. I'm going to ask you just to give a sense for us, if you can, of what the minority party, what the loyal opposition is thinking collectively. Like if you could draw a thought bubble around the Democratic Party right now, there is obviously a lot of self-scrutiny and self-assessment, some finger pointing, some blame casting going on the Democratic side right now, still rocked by what happened last Tuesday. You're seeing that whole debate play out. But it's also the case that everybody understands that they're starting to see a preview of what it's going to look like, what the lines of combat are going to look like after January 20th. Is anybody in the party right now starting to think about what should the strategy be? Where can we resist? Where can we make, I want to take away the word resist. Where can we fight back? Where can we try to make it harder for the unitary Republican government to be able to accomplish what seem to be some pretty radical ends?
Well, look, Heilman, if you look at what the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, has said, and he has been quite consistent, right? He said Democrats are going to work with their Republican counterparts in the House where they can, and they're going to continue to try to deliver for the American people. You know, Democrats have been in the minority in the House this entire time, yet in this particular Congress, and I would also argue in the next, given the margins, the Republicans in the House are going to need Democrats in the House to help further their agenda. When it comes to the United States Senate, though, I do think that Democrats within the Senate, led at this point by Senator Schumer, they have not articulated a strategy, if you will, because I don't think Democrats want to be in the posture of we are against, we are against, we are against. You know, people send their members of Congress to get things done. However, these are not normal times, you know? So when we're talking about Senate confirmations, potentially, or even recess appointments, we have yet to see writ large the Senate Democratic Caucus articulate their stance on that. I know what people think privately. I know what Senator Durbin has said. Senator Durbin is calling for the report as the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee. You know, the senators are their own little fiefdoms, if you will, on these committees. So he has the ranking and the right to raise that and ask for that as the ranking member, as the Democrat on that committee. But what is Senate Democrats' posture at large? And that is what they're going to have to quickly articulate and figure out in this new D.C. world order. It is not enough. You know, I was very disturbed, actually, by folks like Senator Fetterman, who said that Matt Gaetz was high-level trolling, if you will, and Donald Trump trying to own the libs. It's not serious. As one of my followers on Twitter said, I'm going to hold America's hand and say there is no 3D chess, baby. There's no 3D chess. This isn't about trolling. This is the strategy. This is his plan. And so Democrats have to get serious, particularly in the Senate, where the spotlight will be on them in the next coming days and weeks throughout the rest of President Biden's term and at the start of the new Congress come January.
Simone says she wants to hear from the Democratic senators. Well, let's ask one. Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware joins us right now. He is, of course, a member of the Foreign Relations and Judiciary Committees. Senator, thank you so much for being with us this morning. And incoming Senate Majority Leader John Thune says that using recess appointments to get Trump's cabinet nominees confirmed is an option. We're going to play for you what he said on Fox News yesterday.
Do you then punt to a recess and try to recess the Senate for 10 days and get those appointments in?
Well, it's an option, but obviously it takes, you have to have all Republicans vote to recess as well. So the same Republicans that you mentioned that might have a problem voting for somebody under regular order probably also have a problem voting to put the Senate into recess. You have to have concurrence from the House. There's a process. All this is a process. But I don't think any of those things are necessarily off the table.
So, Senator Coons, you just heard it there. Majority Leader Thune says it's not off the table. Let's get your reaction to this possibility and your Republican colleagues you speak to. How likely is this?
Well, Jonathan, as you've been discussing this morning, a number of President-elect Trump's picks are alarming. Are folks who are just demonstrably unqualified to lead the critical agencies they've been nominated to lead. As you mentioned in the introduction, I serve on both the Foreign Relations Committee and the Judiciary Committee. And to answer Simone's question about what's the posture going to be, speaking for myself at least, I'm going to work with President Trump on his nominees when they are folks who could credibly lead an agency. And I will work as hard as I can to block, stop, or slow those who are just demonstrably unqualified, either by their integrity, their experience, or their policy views to lead an agency. The U.S. Department of Justice is a massive agency with 115,000 employees, a $60 billion budget. And it's not a joke. This isn't reality TV. This is reality. The U.S. Department of Justice investigates and prosecutes federal crimes all over the United States and is critical to our national security, to protecting the American people, to enforcing antitrust rules, lots and lots of things that matter to the American people. And our State Department, which Senator Marco Rubio has been nominated to lead, is also a critical global force for good that helps project the American people's interests, values, and power around the world. Senator Rubio is someone I've served with for 14 years. He's seasoned and experienced. He's served on the Intelligence Committee, the Foreign Relations Committee. We have policy differences, of course, but he strikes me as someone who is much more in line with traditional nominees, with the experience, the integrity, the vision to be capable of leading the State Department. So my hope is that Senator Thune recognizes, as the newly elected leader coming into this next Congress, that he will have strong pushback in his own caucus if they recess the Senate and hand President Trump the chance to appoint literally anyone he feels like for up to 2 years. That would be setting aside a critical constitutional role of the Senate, the role of advice and consent.
Senator, it's Simone. How are you?
Hey, Simone.
I think that you have been actually quite clear on what your posture is, and a couple other Democratic senators have as well. But my question is, what about the caucus? You know, has the caucus come together and had a meeting about what the posture is going to be? Are we going to see a press conference, if you will, from Senate Dems and leadership? And then when it comes to what happens if the senators and the Republican senators do decide to give for the president-elect what he would like in terms of recess appointments? What happens if they go that route and then you all just don't come back and confirm the rest of the folks and Donald Trump just has a bunch of acting individuals? What then would Senate Democrats be prepared to do or say?
Well, Simone, I can't speak for the whole caucus, but I will tell you that we have other tools. The Constitution does give the president the power to make recess appointments. That goes back to a time when the Senate was only in session a few months a year, and there were long periods. And so the framers decided it was important for the president to be able to keep the government running. It was a government that was dramatically smaller, and it was assumed that the president wouldn't abuse that power. So, look, I'm not going to get ahead of our Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. We met several times this week as a caucus to process the lessons of the election and to debate and discuss our path forward. I will tell you that I think one of the main messages of this election was that millions of Americans want a stronger economy. They want better opportunity and they want lower prices. And I hope we will spend some time focusing on how Trump's plans to try and deport millions of people and to slap huge tariffs on all imported goods, which will then raise costs for consumers, will lead to a weaker economy, to higher inflation and lower growth. We knew this during the campaign. I talked about it a lot in the campaign, yet the average American who was listening to both sides said, we trust Trump with the economy. Now they're going to get to see the difference in the direction he's going to take us. And hopefully there will still be time and room to also debate the dramatic consequences of putting people like RFK Jr. in charge of vaccinations and fluoridation in the water and public health, and the consequences of putting Matt Gaetz, someone who couldn't pass an FBI background check, in charge of the most important law enforcement agency in our country.
Senator, hey, it's Susan Glasser here. How are you today?
Hey, Susan. Good morning. I'm okay. How are you?
Well, lots to discuss. You mentioned the meetings that you had in the caucus to talk about what just happened in the election. I talked with one of your colleagues the other day who said that, it was a really painful conversation. There seemed to be a lot of agreement that immigration really was an issue that hurt some of your vulnerable senators, and in particular, the Biden administration's, sort of taking a long time to come around to the idea that there was actually a crisis that needed to be addressed. I'm curious, what was your takeaway from some of the after-action reports from your colleagues like Sherrod Brown, who did lose his reelection in Ohio?
Well, Sherrod, like John Tester, like many of our candidates for the Senate, ran ahead of our presidential candidate by many points. If Vice President Harris had only lost Ohio by 4 to 6 points, Sherrod would be returning to the Senate. So one of the things that we discussed was how some of our incumbents, like Sherrod Brown, who's well known to the people of Ohio, who's deeply rooted in fighting for the dignity of work, who has stood fast with unions and fought for manufacturing jobs all over his state, actually performed relatively well. There was broad agreement that our candidates and our campaigns were well-funded, well-run, and we had a huge number of volunteers. What we were debating and discussing was, were our policies wrong, or did we fail to connect with middle American voters? I don't think, and most of our caucus doesn't think, that the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration, investing in manufacturing, in infrastructure, in mental health, in supporting our veterans, in making progress in gun safety, we didn't have wrong policies in terms of the core accomplishments of the administration, but there were some key issues that were not addressed quickly enough or well enough. One of them was housing, and another was border security.
Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. Senator, thank you as always.
Thank you.
And Susan Glasser, thank you as well. We'll be reading your new piece online for The New Yorker. Still ahead here on Morning Joe, our next guest says the United States is a bitterly divided nation and is pointing the blame at the country's elite institutions. The Atlantic's David Brooks joins us with his new piece, How the Ivy League Broke America. Morning Joe is back in just a moment.
When Hulu Plus Live TV calls upon famous athletes like DK Metcalf to act in their ads, they call upon me. Be your TV, streaming live sports.
Hulu Plus Live TV has over 95 channels.
Yes! Tap into that surprise!
Live news, local channels. You got this.
Together, Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, all in one plan. He's going to be a star.
Hulu Plus Live TV, live sports, meets entertainment.
Hulu Plus Live TV.
This is the first party she remembers. This is her first graduation. This is the big one. More parties. This is her first apartment. Her first real art. Her first real dinner party. This is where she fell in love. Here. And also here. This is their first dog. Their third winter. Their fifth summer. Their first holiday card. Their first home. Who knew life would take them so many places?
Not seeing results with just hair supplements? Nature meet the power of science with prescription hair treatments.
Through Hers, you can grow visibly fuller hair in 3 to 6 months, thanks to doctor-trusted prescription ingredients combined with high-grade vitamins and supplements. So whether you chew, pop, or drop, you can see and feel the difference with personalized treatment to support healthy, thicker hair. Grow fuller hair with clinically proven ingredients. Get started today at forhers.com.
With Chime, I can get paid when I want. Why do we accept waiting 2 weeks for payday? I work hard every day, but I don't get paid every day. Because of Chime, I don't have to wait to get paid anymore. With my pay, I can get up to $500 of my pay on my schedule. There's no interest, no credit checks, no mandatory fees. I love being in control of my money, and for the first time, I can control my payday. And you can too. And that's why I Chime. Join me at chime.com and get paid when you say.
When you sleep more deeply, you wake up more energized. Introducing Purple's new mattresses. Our unique Gel Flex grid draws away heat, helping you fall asleep faster. It relieves pressure for less ow and more ah, and instantly adapts as you move without ever disturbing your partner. Amazing. Sleep better. Live Purple. Right now, save up to $1,000 during our Black Friday sale. Visit purple.com or store near you.
With Udemy, there's a world of possibility at your fingertips. With one click, you're in the leading online marketplace for learning and skills. Want to become an AI expert? This is learning from real-world experts around the globe. Want to awaken your artistic side? This is learning your way. Want to switch professions? Help your team reskill? This is Udemy, the power of possibilities.
I grew up in the front row of the spectator section in courtrooms. My father was a Boston cop who became a lawyer, and he had me in the courtrooms all the time. And so everything that happens in courtrooms makes perfect sense to me, and my job is to try to make it make sense to an audience.
Pretty shot there of Rockefeller Plaza and the Christmas tree. A few weeks away from being lit, we've still got Thanksgiving to look forward to first. So the new cover story for next month's issue of The Atlantic offers a sprawling examination of how the Ivy League broke America. In it, contributing writer David Brooks argues 6 main points. First, the system overrates intelligence. Success in school is not the same thing as success in life. The game is rigged. The meritocracy has created an American caste system. It has damaged the psyches of the American elite, and it has provoked a populist backlash that is tearing society apart. And David joins us now. David, a fascinating and important piece. Let's start with that last one, coming after the election, of course, where it does seem like a lot of what fueled this Trump vote, and he saw gains across the board, was sort of an anger, a backlash, a populist anger at the nation's elites.
Yeah, first, thanks for summarizing a 12,000-word piece in 30 seconds. You guys did a fantastic job with that. I wish I'd thought of that.
Brevity's our thing sometimes.
Well, what's the big divide in American politics? It's the diploma divide. College-educated people are now trending sharply to the left, to the Democrats. High school-educated people are trending sharply to the right, to Donald Trump, and he rode a populist wave of anger from people with high school degrees and not college degrees. But that anger flows out of something, and it flows out of life in America right now. People with high school degrees die 9 years earlier than people with college degrees. They're 10 times more likely to die of opioid addiction. They make much less money. They're much less likely to marry, much more likely to divorce, much more likely to have kids out of wedlock. If you ask people, do you have close personal friends? People with high school degrees are 2.5 times more likely to say, I have no close personal friends. So I'm trying to describe a chasm in American society between those who have the advantage of a college degree and those who don't. And that chasm was created by policies that segregated people by bogus categories. And now the people who have been left out of that segregation system are revolting. And as we talk about the appointments and all the things that are really important that we're talking about today, we need to address the deep structural issues that gave us Donald Trump.
You know, hi, David. Simone Sanders Townsend. I found this fascinating, if you will, your whole piece. As I was reading it, I'm like, David sounded like Bernie Sanders, because the populism undertones here are strong. I'm wondering how race plays into this, right? If you look at a number of surveys that were taken throughout the election, I think back to a Goldman Sachs survey specifically, and they surveyed, middle manager, upper manager Black women in corporate America and the majority of them surveyed said that they feel like they're living paycheck to paycheck. And so how does race account into this? Because I do think that many of the points you make here are spot on. Too much focus on, grades and standardized tests, and not enough focus on, as my husband might say, street skills.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely right. First, I have a buddy who worked for Bernie Sanders who's now razzing me for joining the Bernie Bros, so I'm a little alarmed by that, frankly. But, I do think the number of people living paycheck to paycheck and the way race plays into it. I would say one of the things that we have to have in American colleges is representation. Representation to diverse communities. And when affirmative action was taken away by the Supreme Court, if you look at the statistics of how many Black students there were, how many other kind of minority students, they're just not as many. And that's because they have one standard for getting into college. The one threshold before anything else gets considered at an elite university is how you did in the SATs. And that's a system that is rigged because the rich people can afford to spend tons of money on their kids and get them higher SAT students, higher tutoring. They can get them all these extracurriculars. They can boost their GPA averages. And so if you grew up in the top 1%, you have a 77 times greater chance of getting in the Ivy League than people making, say, less than $40,000 or $50,000 a year. So the whole game has been rigged so rich parents can pass their advantages down to their kids. And that's what's created this inherited meritocracy, which has led to a permanent divide in our society. And if you happen to be part of a community that, has suffered 400 years of slavery and discrimination, of course you're going to be disadvantaged by that system. And so we need to have a better system that actually represents ability. That's my core point here, is it's not, can you do well on a standardized test? That's fine. It's important to have a high IQ. If you're going to be an astrophysicist, yeah, you probably need one. But for most of us, what really matters is, are you curious? Are you a good teammate? Do you know how to make sound judgments? Are you kind? These are the things that actually matter in life. Are you creative? And somehow our system does not favor the things that really matter in life and favors the things that make you good in a classroom.
Contributing writer for The Atlantic, David Brooks. David, thank you so much. The new cover story in The Atlantic and available to read online now. Simone Sanders Townsend, thank you as well. We, of course, will be watching The Weekend, Saturdays and Sundays, starting at 8 a.m. right here on MSNBC. Coming up here on Morning Joe, we'll show you the unconventional way a lawmaker in New Zealand protested a bill that has to do with the country's indigenous people. Morning Joe, we'll be right back.
Hey, who's excited to work around the clock and do way too much managing migraine?
Nope. Any volunteers to be completely overwhelmed, taking more meds, only to, oh joy, keep getting migraine attacks? No.
Who's got an appetite for sheer agony?
No!
Is it time to say yep to Vyepti? Vyepti is an IV infusion that helps prevent migraine attacks. Chronic migraine patients saw 23 fewer migraine days on average per treatment. And it's just 4 30-minute IV treatments a year. Plus, it's designed to start working fast. Don't take if allergic to Vyepti. Common side effects are allergic reactions, stuffy nose, and scratchy throat. Allergic reactions include rash, swelling of the face, lips, tongue, or throat, trouble breathing, hives, and redness of the face. Ask your neurologist about saying yep to Vyepti.
Wealthfront offers a cash account that has one of the highest interest rates on the market.
If I send my money to Wealthfront, I know that it's being taken care of.
Knowing that it is gaining interest, just sitting there is huge.
I have real-time access to my money, even on weekends and holidays.
Getting my direct deposit there, paying my bills.
Any emergencies that come up.
There are like no strings attached. There's no monthly fees or anything. Over time, those types of things add up. And what I'm trying to do is keep as much money in my pocket as possible.
My favorite babysitter is Annalisa. She's pretty good. She's like my grandma. She says, "Hola, ¿cómo estás?" She plays with me. She helps you feel better. Bugs and insects are healthy for you. Amelia took us to the beach. She teaches me some gymnastics. We like color. We draw flowers, and then we go skateboarding.
From babysitters to nannies to daycare centers, find all the care you need at care.com.
My father was a Boston cop who became a lawyer, and he had me in the courtrooms all the time. And so everything that happens in courtrooms makes perfect sense to me, and my job is to try to make it make sense to an audience.
Welcome back. Time now for a look at some of the other stories making headlines this morning. Israel is expanding its ground operation in southern Lebanon. Troops are moving into villages farther from the border, engaging in battles with Hezbollah fighters. Despite the expanding operation, U.S. officials have recently expressed some optimism over efforts to broker a ceasefire there. And business inside New Zealand's parliament came to a stop on Thursday after opposition lawmakers protested a bill that would redefine the country's founding treaty with its indigenous people. Maori lawmakers performed a haka, a traditional dance there, to show their anger over the proposed legislation. The speaker temporarily stopped the session after one member tore up what appeared to be her copy of the bill, which sparked the wider protest. Coming up next, Huma Abedin will join the table to introduce us to the woman behind one of the most iconic and at times controversial magazine issues of all time. Huma will explain that next.
Grandpa and I used to work on this together, and when I'm gone, I want you to have it.
Doesn't count. What you need is a will, something you can sign and make official. Start your will at trustandwill.com and make it count.
With Lumi Whole Body Deodorant, you can dare to do the things BO never lets you, like going in for a hug after a post-hot flash gardening session. She's about to get up close and personal with your pets, your bike shorts, and your dogs. And you go ahead and bring it in anyway. Because up to 72 hours ago, you sprayed Lumi just about everywhere to stop odor-causing bacteria reactions before they started. Dare to do what BO never lets you. Go to LumiDeo.com and get your first starter pack for 30% off.
The future of cool, comfortable sleep is here. Introducing the new Sleep Number Climate Cool Smart Bed, the only smart bed in the world that actively cools and effortlessly adjusts to both of you. Sleep up to 15 degrees cooler on each side. It actively cools by drawing warm air away from your body to keep you cool and comfortable throughout the night. Our smart sleepers get 28 minutes more restful sleep per night. And now save 50% on the Sleep Number Limited Edition Smart Bed, plus up to $500 off an adjustable base. Shop a Sleep Number store near you.
Stand by to animate.
You can be passionate about the truth. Our Russia block, there's this notion that being passionate ties you to a bias or an ideology. We haven't mentioned at all. Here's my bias. I want my kids to live in a better world than I got.
Push 3.
Every generation should want First that. responders in Israel have. I want to know. So we have to look at every story from a few different lenses and with some nuance to it and help people get smarter.
Oh, it's gratuitous. That's because they didn't know the whole picture.
Women
who support women, women who see the beauty in women. Why would you not want to support them?
She changed my life.
That issue is seen by an estimated 50 million people every year. 1/3 of them women. That might not be what you'd expect. But then again, Julie Campbell is not what you'd expect either.
If you respect beauty, you've nourished your soul. Oh my God. This is how I feel like an editor again.
Welcome back to Morning Joe. I'm Huma Abedin, here to take you through this next story. What you just saw was a glimpse at the new documentary, Beyond the Gaze, Julie Campbell's swimsuit edition. The film, directed by Julie's daughter-in-law, takes a look at the life and legacy of the legendary founding editor of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit issue. Throughout her 32-year tenure at the magazine, Julie navigated a sexist work environment while fighting accusations of objectification.
I realized immediately how important it was. Julie was an artist. Every picture that she took had a complete vision behind it. It wasn't like, oh, let's just happen upon this, or maybe this will, turn out okay. I told Jill a story where we walked through the woods at 4 in the morning, and the sun is coming up, and we're rushing along, and I'm going, where are we going to? And then we pop out on a beach, and there on the beach is a boat the same color as the suit that I was wearing, the rainbow suit. So it was quite shocking how organized and how she had this complete vision of the story from beginning to end.
Well, lots of examples of that in the documentary. But Jill, talk to us about the criticism that Julie faced, and what did it mean to you to watch her break the glass ceiling in a male-dominated industry?
Well, I feel like I'm walking in her shoes right now doing this film, because people have always asked me when I'm telling them I'm doing the film, are you approaching the criticism? And of course, we're looking at that. And, she now used to protest her. Women thought that she was objectifying women. But you know what? She was actually celebrating women, and she protected the women that she worked with. She used to pull gratuitous shots from the pile and would never let her male executives see them. She figured out how to navigate a 1960s sexist male work environment. I love Sports Illustrated. It's a great magazine, but it was all men that she was working with. And she figured out not only how to be successful, but she created one of the most lucrative magazine issues in publishing history. And it was because she was an artist, and she was confident, and she was a woman who had no self-esteem issues.
That is such a good point. There are so many lessons that I think we can take.
Placed, I called her and said, do you have a place to stay? Do you have somebody helping you? Do you need anything? That's something I learned from Julie, is to care. and to really reach out to other women. Because as women, we tend to not to support each other. And I think that's a big mistake because we could really learn from each other and really advance. And I think that's really important.
Well, absolutely. Well, Jill Campbell and Carol Alt, Maggie, thank you all. Beyond the Gaze will be playing at the Documentary Film Festival, Doc NYC, on November 17th and 18th. And the film will continue to play at select theaters across the country. You can get all the details at juliecampbell.com. And we'll be right back with much more Morning Joe.
At Ashley, you can find what you love and save up to $1,000 store-wide. So it's not just Black Friday. It's the Ashley Tonight I'm Going to Sleep Like a Log, whatever that means, Black Friday event. The Ashley, there's no way my husband's snoring is going to keep me awake now, Black Friday event. But don't wait, because it's also the Ashley, ooh, look, you can get 0% interest for 72 months, Black Friday event.
Sometimes investing can feel so all over the place. That's why Public.com created one place for it all. One place where you can invest in almost everything, like stocks, options, bonds, and crypto. You can even lock in a 6% or higher yield, because it's the one place where you can build your portfolio the way you want. All your investing in one place. Get up to $10,000 when you transfer an account to Public.com.
Go! All right, I'm loose. 24 years ago, 5'2", I think I get under.
As someone once said, it's got to be the shoes.
Tom, on you. Go. Come on, go. Oh, baby. 5'18".
If you do that 25 years ago, you get drafted in the third round.
No bull. Just get it done. Let's go.
You want customers to know they can trust your business, that their information is safe with you. And to prove it, you need one of these. Thankfully, there's Vanta. Vanta integrates with the tools you already use, from cloud providers to task trackers, to automate the tedious process of gathering the evidence needed to successfully complete a security audit. Secure and grow your business with Vanta, the fast, easy, and trusted way to get compliant.
Do you wash your legs in the shower?
Yes. His voice gets high like that when he's lying.
Oh, wow. That's very cool.
And it's waterproof.
Very nice.
20 different lengths.
You're going to be dating 20 different men.
No.
You got this one.
Huh.
This is cool. Oh, it's soft. Put it in my bag, like in my car, take it with me.
He wants this.
Immediately.
What? Okay.
Buff bundle. I would never forget my legs with this thing.
Give your partner a gift they'll actually use with 20% off at manscaped.com.
Here at home tonight, news of every imaginable shape and size. A lot of the big news in the country and in the world right now is still developing tonight. Now is the time, so we're gonna do it. Settle in. I have a story to tell you. Watch this space.